The massive crystal chamber that housed the Galactic Council for over 3,000 years now flickered with dying light. Admiral Kree's 6 arms trembled as he watched the holographic display showing the final moments of Zentari Prime. The once beautiful world, home to 60 billion souls, was being consumed by something that shouldn't exist anymore. "They're back," whispered Council Member Vex, her translucent blue skin turning pale. "After 10,000 years of peace, the Void Swarm has returned." The other council members sat in stunned silence. The Zentari had been the Federation's greatest military power. Their planet-sized defense stations could destroy entire fleets, yet in just 3 hours everything was gone. The viewing screen showed only empty space where a thriving world once existed. Admiral Kree activated the emergency broadcast system. His voice, heavy with desperation, began transmitting across all known space. "This is Admiral Kree of the Galactic Federation. We are facing extinction. The ancient enemy has returned. Any civilization capable of receiving this message, please respond. We need help." The message spread through hyperspace channels, reaching hundreds of worlds. Most were already under attack or had gone silent. The few remaining Federation outposts were preparing for evacuation. Hope was dying with each passing hour. Far away in a quiet corner of the galaxy that most advanced civilizations had forgotten, a small blue planet orbited its yellow star. Earth had just achieved something remarkable. After decades of dreaming, hand-trying humans had finally cracked the secret of faster-than-light travel. In Seoul, South Korea, Dr. Kim Jina was celebrating with her research team. They had successfully completed humanity's first FTL test flight. The small probe had traveled to Alpha Centauri and back in just 6 hours. It should have taken over 8 years. "We did it!" shouted Engineer Park Hyun, raising his coffee cup, like it was champagne. "Humanity is finally ready to explore the stars." The celebration was interrupted when their deep space monitoring station picked up an unusual signal. The automated systems had been scanning space for any signs of alien life for 50 years. Most scientists thought they would never find anything. "Doctor." "Kim," called technician Lee Tae from across the room. "You need to see this. We're receiving a transmission from outside our solar system." The team gathered around the main screen as the computer worked to translate the alien message. The universal mathematical patterns made basic communication possible, even without knowing the language. As the translation appeared on screen, the room fell silent. The message spoke of dying worlds, ancient enemies, and a desperate plea for help. It painted a picture of a galaxy at war, with civilizations falling one by one to something called the Void Swarm. "This can't be real," whispered Dr. Kim, but deep down she knew it was. The signal was too complex, too detailed to be fake. Somewhere out there, entire worlds were dying. Within hours, the message had reached every major government on Earth. Emergency meetings were called. World leaders who had been arguing about trade deals and border disputes suddenly faced something that made their problems seem tiny. The alien message included star charts showing the location of the dying Federation. It was 47 light-years away. With their new FTL technology, human ships could reach it in just weeks. But Earth had never fought a space war. Their ships were built for exploration, not battle. Most humans had never even seen an alien before. How could they help save civilizations that were thousands of years more advanced? As Earth's leaders debated, more desperate messages arrived. From space. Each one brought news of another fallen world, another extinct species. Time was running out for the entire galaxy, and somehow humanity might be the only hope left. The celebration of achieving FTL travel had quickly turned into something much bigger. Earth was about to face its greatest challenge, and the fate of countless worlds now rested in human hands. The emergency meeting in the Pentagon's deepest bunker had been going on for 18 hours straight. Coffee cups littered the table, and tension filled the air like smoke. General Park Hyun rubbed his tired eyes as he studied the alien star charts for the 100th time. "We can't seriously be considering this," said Secretary of Defense Williams, his voice hoarse from arguing. "We're talking about flying into a war zone against enemies we know nothing about. It's suicide." Admiral Kim Jina stood up, her uniform wrinkled from the long session. And if we do nothing, these aliens are begging for help. Their entire civilization is dying out there. That's not our problem, snapped Senator Rodriguez. Our job is to protect Earth, not play galactic heroes. We just figured out how to leave our solar system last week. General Park slammed his hand on the table. Those star charts show the enemy is moving toward our sector. Eventually they'll find Earth anyway. We can either face them now with allies or wait for them to come to us alone. The politicians continued their heated debate, while the military leaders exchanged worried glances. Every hour they delayed meant more alien worlds falling to the void swarm. Yet sending Earth's tiny fleet seemed like throwing away humanity's future. Meanwhile, in a small laboratory 3 floors below, young engineer Lee Tae was doing something nobody had authorized. He had downloaded the alien technical data and was studying their technology with fresh eyes. This doesn't make sense, he muttered to himself, staring at the holographic display of an alien warship. The design was beautiful but seemed overly complicated. Every system had backup systems, and those had backup systems too. His colleague, Dr. Cho Min, looked over his shoulder. What are you seeing? Look at their power distribution network. Lee Tae pointed to the complex web of energy conduits. It's like they're afraid of everything breaking down. They've made their ship so safe that they can barely function. Dr. Cho frowned. Maybe they have good reasons. Their technology is thousands of years ahead of ours. But that's just it, Lee Tae said excitedly. Being advanced doesn't always mean being better. Look at their weapon systems. They fire in perfect patterns, always the same timing, always the same targeting priority. It's predictable. Lee Tae pulled up more data, his excitement growing. And their ships always stay in formation. They never break rank, even when it would be smarter to scatter. It's like they've forgotten how to be creative. Are you saying we could actually help them? Dr. Cho asked. I'm saying we might be the only ones who can, Lee Tae replied. They think logically, perfectly, predictably. But sometimes the best solution isn't the logical one. Sometimes you need to do something crazy. Upstairs, the debate was getting more heated. President Chen was trying to find middle ground between the hawks and the doves. What if we send just a few ships, she suggested, a small force to make contact and assess the situation. A few ships against an enemy that destroyed entire star systems? Secretary Williams shook his head. It's still suicide, just with fewer casualties. That's when Lee Tae burst into the room carrying his tablet and looking like he hadn't slept in days. I'm sorry to interrupt, he said breathlessly, but I think I know why the aliens are losing. General Park raised an eyebrow. You're not supposed to be analyzing classified alien data, engineer. I know, sir, but listen to this, Lee Tae said, projecting his findings onto the main screen. Their technology is too perfect. They've eliminated every possibility of failure, but they've also eliminated flexibility. He showed them the alien battle formations, weapon patterns, and ship designs. They fight like computers, always choosing the mathematically optimal solution. But what if the optimal solution isn't always the right one? Admiral Kim leaned forward, intrigued. What are you suggesting? I'm suggesting that maybe being human is an advantage, Lee Tae said. We make mistakes, we take risks, we do things that don't make sense. Maybe that's exactly what this war needs. The room fell silent as everyone processed this idea. Could humanity's greatest weakness actually be their strength? President Chen looked around the table at the faces of her advisors. If we're going to do this, we need volunteers only. No one gets forced into this mission. Within hours, the word had spread to military bases around the world. The response was overwhelming. Thousands of soldiers, pilots, engineers, and scientists volunteered for what many called a suicide mission, as Earth prepared its small fleet. For departure, one thing became clear. Humanity was about to change the course of galactic history. One crazy decision at a time. The 12 human ships dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler system, and Captain Cho Min felt his breath catch in his throat. The sight before them was both magnificent and terrifying. Massive alien structures floated in space, each one larger than Earth's biggest cities, but many were damaged, sparking with failing energy systems and scarred by weapon fire. My God, whispered his communications officer, Lieutenant Bei Sung. "Look at the size of those things." Captain Cho activated the ship's intercom. "All vessels, this is the flagship. Remember, we're here to help, not to gawk. Stay alert and follow first contact protocols." The human fleet had practiced this moment hundreds of times during their 3-week journey, but nothing could have prepared them for the reality. The Federation's last stronghold was a collection of refugee ships from dozens of different worlds, all crowded together in a desperate attempt to survive. A strange musical voice crackled over the radio. The translation software worked quickly to convert it into English. "Unknown vessels, identify yourselves. This is Admiral Kree of the Galactic Federation Emergency Command." Captain Cho straightened his uniform and activated the video transmission. "Admiral Kree, this is Captain Cho Min of the Earth Defense Fleet. We received your distress call. We're here to help." The silence that followed lasted so long that the humans began to wonder if their transmission had failed. Finally, Admiral Kree's image appeared on their screens. He looked like a tall, thin humanoid with 6 arms and silver skin that seemed to shimmer with its own light. "Earth?" Admiral Kree repeated, consulting what looked like a holographic database. "I'm not familiar with that world. What level of technological development has your species achieved?" "We've had faster-than-light travel for about a month," Captain Cho replied honestly. Another long silence. When Admiral Kree spoke again, his voice carried a mix of disappointment and desperation. "A month? You're telling me that a species that just learned to leave their home system is responding to our call for help?" "Yes, sir. We brought 12 ships and 3,000 volunteers." Admiral Kree's shoulders sagged. 3,000? We've lost 3 billion beings in the last week alone." He paused, seeming to struggle with his next words. "Captain Cho, I appreciate your courage in coming here, but this enemy has destroyed civilizations that were spacefaring for millennia before your world even had multicellular life." The human crew exchanged glances. They had expected to be the junior partners in this alliance, but the alien's dismissive tone was harder to swallow than they'd anticipated. Dr. Na Yuri, the fleet's chief scientist, stepped forward. "Admiral, with respect, we didn't come here to be underestimated. We came to fight. May we see your data on this void swarm?" Admiral Kree seemed surprised by her directness. "Dr. Nayuri, and I'd like to examine any void swarm technology you've recovered." "That information is highly classified and extremely dangerous," replied the alien admiral. "Perhaps you could assist with refugee evacuation or supply distribution." Instead, Captain Cho felt his temper rising but kept his voice calm. "Admiral, we didn't travel 47 light-years to run errands. Earth's leadership sent us here because we believe we can contribute something unique to this fight." "And what might that be?" asked a new voice. Another alien appeared on screen, this one shorter and covered in what looked like blue fur. "I am Science Director Vex. What could a species that just discovered hyperspace possibly offer? Dr. Nye." Yuri smiled, and Captain Cho recognized that expression. It was the same look she'd worn when solving impossible engineering problems back on Earth. "A fresh perspective," she said simply. "Sometimes, when you've been looking at a problem for too long, you can't see obvious solutions anymore." Science Director Vex made a sound that the translator couldn't interpret. "The void swarm has been analyzed by the greatest minds in the galaxy. We've run millions of combat simulations. Every possible strategy has been attempted." "Every logical strategy," Dr. Nayuri corrected. "But have you tried any illogical ones?" The alien scientists exchanged what humans would recognize as confused glances. Admiral Kree spoke carefully, as if addressing children. "Illogical strategies would be illogical. They would not work." Lieutenant Bei Sung couldn't help but chuckle. "Sir, with respect, humans have been winning battles with illogical strategies for thousands of years. Sometimes the stupid plan is the only one that works." The communication channel fell silent again. Finally, Admiral Kree sighed, a sound that translated perfectly across species barriers. "Very well," he said. "You may dock with our command station, but understand, Captain Cho, that we cannot risk our remaining resources on untested theories from an inexperienced species." As the human ships approached the massive alien station, Dr. Nayuri was already studying the void swarm data that the Federation had reluctantly shared. What she saw in those files would change everything, but first she had to convince an entire galaxy that sometimes the newest voice in the room had the most important things to say. The real first contact wasn't going to be about diplomacy or technology. It was going to be about proving that humanity deserved a seat at the table where the fate of the universe would be decided. Lieutenant Bei Sung stared at the holographic battle map, feeling frustrated and homesick. For the past week, he'd been sitting in strategy meetings with the galaxy's greatest military minds, watching them fail to predict the Void Swarm's next move. Every time the Federation thought they had figured out the enemy's pattern, the creatures would attack somewhere completely unexpected. They hit the supply convoy at Sector 7 Alpha, reported Commander Veltar, his tentacles writhing with anxiety. That's the third surprise attack this week. We lost 200 ships. Admiral Kree slammed his 6 fists on the strategy table. How are they doing this? Our predictive algorithm should be able to calculate their next target based on tactical advantage and resource availability. Dr. Na Yuri looked up from her analysis tablet. Maybe that's the problem. You're thinking like generals, but what if they're not acting like an army? What else would they act like? Asked Science Director Vex. Lieutenant Bei Sung had been quiet during most of these meetings, feeling out of place among officers who had centuries of experience. But something about the attack patterns reminded him of home, of camping trips with his grandfather in the Korean mountains. They're acting like wolves, he said quietly. The room fell silent. All eyes turned to the young human officer. Excuse me? Admiral Kree asked. Bei Sung stood up, his heart pounding. On Earth, we have pack hunters called wolves. They don't attack the strongest target or the most valuable one. They look for the weakest member of the herd, the one that's separated from the group. He walked over to the holographic display and pointed to the recent attack sites. Look at these targets. None of them were strategically important. The supply convoy was small and poorly defended. The research station only had a skeleton crew. The mining facility was isolated. Commander Veltar's tentacles stopped writhing. You're suggesting they're hunting us like animals? Not like animals, Bei Sung replied. They are animals, predators. My grandfather taught me to track wolves when I was a kid. They circle their prey, test for weaknesses, then strike where the herd is most vulnerable. Dr. Na Yuri pulled up the attack data on her tablet. Show us what you mean. Bei Sung highlighted the enemy movements on the map. See how they probe. Our defenses here, then back off. They're not retreating, they're learning. Each attack tells them more about how we react, where our weaknesses are. But they're intelligent beings with advanced technology, protested Science Director Vex. They can't be operating on mere instinct. Intelligence doesn't erase instinct, Bei Sung said. It just makes it more effective. Earth's most successful generals understood their enemies' psychology, not just their tactics. Admiral Kree studied the map with new eyes. If you're correct, where would they strike next? Bei Sung examined the current fleet positions, looking for the pattern his grandfather had taught him to recognize. There, he said, pointing to a seemingly random point in space. The medical frigate Harmony. It's separated from the main fleet by 6 light minutes, and it only has minimal shields. That ship isn't even carrying weapons, Commander Veltar objected. There's no strategic value in attacking it. There is if you're a predator, Bei Sung replied. Wolves don't attack the bull. They attack the calf that wanders too far from the herd. Admiral Kree was skeptical but desperate enough to try anything. Very well. We'll reinforce the Harmony and set a trap. If your theory is correct, we'll be ready for them. 8 hours later, the Void Swarm attacked exactly where Bei Sung had predicted. But this time, the Federation was waiting. Hidden ships emerged from hyperspace surrounding the attackers. For the first time in months, the aliens won a battle. Remarkable, whispered Science Director Vex as they watched the enemy retreat. How did you know? Because I grew up listening to my grandfather's hunting stories, Bei Sung replied. He always said that the most dangerous predator is the one that learns from every encounter. Over the next few days, Bei Sung's predictions helped the fleet avoid 3 more ambushes. His understanding of pack behavior allowed them to anticipate attacks and position their forces effectively. The alien commanders, who had initially dismissed him as inexperienced, began asking for his input on every major decision. But Bei Sung noticed something troubling in the latest battle reports. "They're changing," he told Dr. Na Yuri privately. "The Void Swarm is adapting to our new tactics." "What do you mean?" "Look at these attack patterns from yesterday," he said, showing her the data. "They're not following the same hunting behavior anymore. They're learning that we've figured them out." Dr. Na Yuri felt a chill run down her spine. "So what happens now?" Bei Sung stared at the tactical display, remembering more of his grandfather's stories. "Now they become more dangerous. A smart predator that knows it's being hunted doesn't give up. It evolves." The young lieutenant had earned the respect of the galaxy's greatest military minds, but he knew their advantage was temporary. The real challenge was just beginning. The Federation's latest battle against the Void Swarm had been a disaster. Despite Lieutenant Bei Sung's tactical insights, the enemy had adapted faster than anyone expected. Plasma cannons that could destroy asteroids barely scratched the creatures' dark hulls. Energy shields that had protected civilizations for thousands of years collapsed within minutes. Sergeant O'Day sat in the aftermath, bandaging a wounded alien engineer whose blue blood had stained the medical bay floor. The young human soldier had seen plenty of combat on Earth, but nothing had prepared him for this. The Void Swarm didn't just destroy ships, they seemed to drain the hope from everyone who faced them. "Sergeant," called Captain Cho Min over the intercom, "report to the strategy room. We need all perspectives on this." O'Day found the command staff looking defeated. Admiral Kree's 6 arms hung limply at his sides, while Science Director Vex paced nervously around the holographic display, showing their dwindling fleet numbers. "We've tried everything," Admiral Kree was saying. "Our most powerful weapons, our most advanced tactics, nothing works. They adapt to every strategy within hours." "Maybe we're fighting the wrong kind of war," O'Day said quietly. The room turned to look at him. Commander Veltar's tentacles twitched impatiently. "What do you mean, Sergeant?" "On Earth, when conventional weapons don't work, we use psychological warfare," O'Day explained. "We mess with the enemy's mind, make them doubt themselves, disrupt their thinking." Science Director Vex made that untranslatable sound again. "The Void Swarm doesn't have individual minds to disrupt. They operate as a collective consciousness." "That might make them more vulnerable, not less," O'Day replied. "If they all think together, then disrupting that connection could paralyze the entire swarm." Dr. Na Yuri looked up from her research tablet with interest. "What kind of psychological warfare are you thinking about?" "Sound," O'Day said simply. "On Earth, we use noise to disorient enemies, loud music, jarring frequencies, anything that breaks their concentration." Admiral Kree looked skeptical. "You want to play music at creatures that have destroyed entire star systems?" "Why not?" O'Day shrugged. "Everything else has failed. What's the worst that could happen?" Lieutenant Bei Sung, who had been studying the Void Swarm's communication patterns, suddenly sat up straight. "Wait, that's not completely crazy. Look at these readings from their last attack." He projected the data onto the main screen. "The creatures coordinate through some kind of shared frequency. It's how they move together so perfectly. If we could disrupt that frequency, we could break their coordination." Dr. Na Yuri finished, excitement growing in her voice. "Sergeant O, what kind of sounds are you thinking about?" O'Day grinned. "Well, I've got my entire music collection on my personal device. Korean pop, classical, rock, traditional folk songs. If we're going to confuse aliens, might as well use the most human thing we've got." The alien commanders looked at each other with expressions that clearly said they thought the humans had lost their minds. But Admiral Kree was desperate enough to try anything. "Fine," he said, "but we test this on a small scale first. If it backfires, we can't afford to lose more ships." 2 hours later, a small Federation patrol encountered a Void Swarm scouting group near the edge of the system. As the dark creatures began their usual attack pattern, O'Day's experimental broadcast began. The opening notes of a traditional Korean folk song filled space, transmitted on the same frequency the Void Swarm used for communication. The effect was immediate and shocking. The creatures stopped moving. For the first time anyone could remember, the Void Swarm hesitated. Their perfect formation wavered as individual units seemed to struggle with conflicting signals. "It's working," whispered Dr. Na Yuri, watching the readings in amazement. "Their coordination is breaking down." O'Day quickly switched to a different song, this one with a faster beat and more complex harmonies. The Void Swarm's confusion deepened. Some creatures began moving in circles, while others simply stopped responding to their collective commands. "Add more variety," suggested Lieutenant Bei Sung. "If they adapt to patterns, let's give them chaos." O'Day started mixing different genres together. Classical symphonies overlapping with rock guitar, traditional drums mixing with electronic beats. The cacophony should have been horrible, but somehow it created a wall of pure human creativity that the Void Swarm couldn't process. The enemy scouting group retreated in complete disarray, leaving the Federation patrol untouched. "Admiral," Kree stared at the battle recordings in stunned silence. "In 3,000 years of galactic warfare, I have never seen anything like this." "Music," Commander Veltar said wonderingly. "They were defeated by music." "Not just music," O'Day corrected. "Human music, human emotion, human chaos. They can adapt to logic and strategy, but they can't understand why someone would create something just because it sounds beautiful." Science Director Vex was already analyzing the frequency data. "We need to expand this immediately. If we can coordinate this kind of broadcast across the entire fleet, we might actually have a chance," Admiral Kree finished, hope returning to his voice for the first time in weeks. As the Federation prepared for their next major engagement, O'Day sat in his quarters, scrolling through his music collection. He never thought his love for old Korean ballads would become humanity's secret weapon, but then again, humans had always been full of surprises. Engineer Ko-Ari crouched inside the cramped maintenance shaft of the alien battleship, sweat dripping, onto her tools despite the ship's climate control. The massive Federation vessel had been damaged in the latest battle, and its automated repair systems were failing. According to the ship's computer, fixing the power distribution network would take 48 hours using standard procedures. Ko-Ari had it working again in 6. "How did you do that?" asked Zekthar, the ship's chief engineer. His 4 eyes blinked rapidly as he stared at her improvised solution. "You bypassed 3 safety protocols and jury-rigged the quantum coupling with spare parts from the cafeteria. The key safety protocols were slowing everything down," Ko-Ari replied, wiping grease from her hands. "And the cafeteria's food processors use the same energy conversion principles as your power grid, just scaled down." Zekthar's translator struggled, with his response finally settling on, "That should not work. It violates 12 different engineering principles." "But it does work," Ko-Ari pointed out. "Your power is back online, isn't it?" This had been happening throughout the fleet. Human engineers were fixing alien technology in ways that made no sense to the Federation's greatest minds. They ignored safety manuals, mixed incompatible systems, and somehow made everything function better than before. Down in the medical bay, medic Jungbin was having his own breakthrough moment. A wounded Velkari soldier had been brought in with injuries that Federation doctors said were untreatable. The alien's triple heart system was failing, and their medical technology couldn't stabilize all 3 organs simultaneously. "What if we don't try to fix all 3 at once?" Jungbin suggested to Dr. Mexelai, the ship's chief physician. "That would be fatal," Dr. Mexelai replied, his tentacles curling in distress. "Velkari physiology requires perfect cardiovascular synchronization. On Earth, we sometimes have to prioritize," Jungbin explained. "Save what we can, stabilize the patient, then work on the rest." He studied the alien's vital signs. "What if we shut down the auxiliary heart completely, fix the primary and secondary hearts, then restart the third one?" "The medical texts say that's impossible," Dr. Mexlai protested. "The medical texts didn't account for desperation," Jungbin replied, already preparing the procedure. 2 hours later, the Velkari soldier was stable and recovering. Dr. Mexlai stared at the success of Jungbin's impossible treatment with amazement. "How did you know that would work?" the alien doctor asked. "I didn't," Jungbin admitted. "But when conventional medicine fails, sometimes you have to try something unconventional." These stories were spreading throughout the Federation fleet. Humans weren't just helping with their music broadcasts and tactical insights. They were revolutionizing how the aliens thought about problem-solving itself. Captain Cho Min found himself in Admiral Kree's private quarters, sharing tea that tasted like warm copper, but was apparently a great honor among the Admiral's species. "Your people are unusual," Admiral Kree said carefully. "Our scientists have spent centuries perfecting our technology. Your engineer Ko-Ari improved our power systems in one afternoon by ignoring everything we know about quantum mechanics." "Maybe that's exactly why it worked," Captain Cho replied. "Sometimes knowledge can be a limitation. When you know all the reasons something won't work, you stop trying to make it work." Admiral Kree's 6 arms gestured thoughtfully. "This concept is difficult for us to understand. In Federation society, we value careful planning, thorough testing, adherence to proven methods. Those are good things," Captain Cho agreed, "but humans have learned that sometimes the best solution is the one nobody expects. We've spent our entire history facing impossible problems with inadequate resources. It's made us creative." "Creative?" Admiral Kree repeated the word like he was tasting something new. "Is that why your Sergeant O'Day thought to use music as a weapon?" "Probably. A Federation general would never think to fight a space battle with folk songs because it doesn't make logical sense. But humans don't always think logically." Admiral Kree was quiet for a long moment. "We have spent so much time trying to become perfect that we may have forgotten how to be flexible." The next day, Admiral Kree made an announcement that shocked the entire Federation command structure. He was restructuring the fleet's operations to include human advisors in every department, not as junior partners, but as equal contributors to decision-making. "The humans have shown us something we had forgotten," he told the assembled officers. "Sometimes the best solution is not the most logical one. Sometimes survival requires abandoning everything you think you know and trying something completely different." Science Director Vex raised an objection. "Admiral, with respect, they've only been in space for a month. How can they be equal partners in decisions affecting the fate of the galaxy?" Admiral Kree looked at the holographic display showing their recent victories. Battles won through music, engineering problems solved with cafeteria parts, medical breakthroughs achieved by ignoring textbooks. "Because Munhi said simply, in 1 month they've accomplished things we couldn't do in 1,000 years. Perhaps it's time we learned from them." The Federation was finally beginning to understand that humanity's greatest strength wasn't their technology or their numbers. It was their willingness to try the impossible when the possible wasn't enough. Dr. Na Yuri hadn't slept in 36 hours. Her eyes burned as she stared at the data streaming across her workstation, but she couldn't stop now. Something important was hiding in these numbers, something that could change everything. "You should rest," said Veltar, the Zentari scientist working beside her. His crystalline skin flickered with concerned colors. "Your human physiology requires regular sleep cycles." "Can't sleep," Dr. Na muttered, highlighting another data pattern. "Look at this. Every time we used Sergeant O's music broadcasts, the Void Swarm's response time increased. But it's not just about disrupting their communication frequency." Veltar leaned closer, his 4 arms manipulating holographic displays with practiced ease. "What are you seeing that I'm missing?" "It's not what they can't process," Dr. Na said excitedly. "It's what they can't predict. Look at the battle data, from when Lieutenant Bay made his first tactical suggestion. The Void Swarm hesitated for 2.3 seconds before adapting. 2.3 seconds is hardly significant in space combat, but it shouldn't exist at all." Dr. Na pulled up more files. "The Void Swarm adapts instantly to logical tactical changes. When Federation ships changed formation patterns, the enemy countered immediately. But when humans did something unexpected," she showed him the recordings of Engineer Ko-Ari's improvised repairs, Medic Jungbin's unconventional treatments, and dozens of other human innovations. "In every case, there was a brief delay in the Void Swarm's response. They can't predict emotional decisions," Veltar said slowly, understanding dawning in his voice. "Logical choices follow patterns, but emotions are chaotic," Dr. Na finished. "When a human acts on instinct or feeling instead of logic, the Void Swarm has to pause and recalculate. They're not used to dealing with beings who make decisions based on hope, fear, love, or just plain stubbornness." Veltar's skin shifted to deep purple which Dr. Na had learned meant he was excited. This could be the breakthrough we've been searching for. But how do we weaponize human emotion? Before Dr. Na could answer, alarms began blaring throughout the ship. Captain Cho Min's voice echoed over the intercom. All hands to battle stations. Long-range sensors show the main void. Swarm force approaching. Estimated arrival 4 hours. In the command center, the mood was grim. The approaching enemy fleet was massive, larger than anything the Federation had faced before. Even with their recent victories, the combined human-alien force was hopelessly outnumbered. "We can't win a conventional battle," Admiral Kree stated, bluntly. "Our best option is to evacuate as many civilians as possible before they arrive." "No," Captain Cho said firmly, "we're not running anymore." The alien commanders looked at him in surprise. Science Director Vex spoke carefully. "Captain, I understand your species values courage, but this is not about bravery. This is about survival." Dr. Na Yuri burst into the room, still carrying her data tablet. "Captain, I need to speak with you. We've found their weakness." She quickly explained her discovery about emotional unpredictability, while the command staff listened in. Growing amazement. "So you're saying the Void Swarm can't handle irrational behavior?" Lieutenant Bay asked. "Exactly. They're like the galaxy's most advanced computer, but computers can't process true randomness." Captain Cho stared at the tactical display, an idea forming in his mind. What if we gave them pure chaos? Not just music broadcasts, but completely unpredictable combat. "That would mean abandoning all standard battle formations," Commander Veltar objected. "No coordination, no tactical support, no logical strategy." "Which is exactly why it might work," Captain Cho replied. "Admiral Kree, I'm proposing something that goes against every rule of space combat. We scatter our forces, abandon formation flying, and let every ship captain fight however they feel like fighting." The silence in the command center was deafening. Admiral Kree's 6 arms trembled slightly. "You're asking me to throw away 3,000 years of military doctrine?" "I'm asking you to trust human instinct," Captain Cho said. "Give every ship, Commander, human and alien, permission to follow their gut feelings instead of their training. Let them make emotional decisions, take personal risks, fight for reasons that don't make tactical sense." "That's not warfare," Science Director Vex protested. "That's madness." "Maybe," Captain Cho admitted, "but it's human madness, and that's something the Void Swarm has never faced before." Dr. Na Yuri pulled up her research data. "The numbers support this. Every time we've acted on emotion instead of logic, we've gained an advantage, but we've been holding back, trying to fit human creativity into alien military structure." Admiral Kree looked around the room at his officers, then at the human faces, filled with desperate determination. "You're asking me to bet the fate of the galaxy on the unpredictability of emotional beings." "We're asking you to bet on hope," Captain Cho replied, "because that's what humans do best. We fight hardest when the situation looks hopeless." The Admiral was quiet for a long moment, considering the impossible choice. Finally, he activated the fleet-wide communication system. "All ships, this is Admiral Kree. In 1 hour, we will engage the enemy using unconventional tactics. Ship commanders are authorized to use their own judgment, ignore standard protocols, and fight however they believe is best. Trust your instincts, not your manuals." As the Federation fleet prepared for the most chaotic battle in galactic history, Captain Cho felt a strange sense of calm. They were about to find out if human unpredictability could save the universe. Shatali, Void Swarm emerged from hyperspace like a living nightmare. Thousands of dark, writhing shapes blocked out the stars, their hulls seeming to absorb light itself. The Federation's combined fleet looked tiny in comparison, a handful of fireflies facing a storm cloud. "All ships, engage at will, Admiral." Kree broadcast, his voice steady despite the overwhelming odds. "Remember, trust your instincts, not your training." The alien ships moved forward in their traditional formations, weapons charging and shields raised. But the human vessels did something completely different. They scattered in all directions like startled birds, each one following its captain's personal judgment, rather than any tactical manual. Pilot Han Seo sat in the cockpit of his fighter, watching the chaos unfold around him. His squadron had been assigned to escort duty, But as he watched the Void Swarm's perfect formations beginning their calculated advance, a crazy idea popped into his head. "Control, this is Han Seo," he radioed, requesting permission to break formation. "Granted," came Captain Cho's immediate reply. "Follow your gut, pilot." Han Seo grinned and pushed his engines to maximum. Instead of joining the main battle line, he dove straight toward the center of the enemy formation. His wingman, Park Jin, followed without question. "Han, what are you doing?" Park's voice crackled over the radio. "That's the swarm's command. Cluster, it's suicide." "Maybe," Han replied, weaving between enemy fire with moves that would have failed any flight test back on Earth. "But I'm tired of being scared of these things." The Void Swarm's coordinated response faltered for a critical moment. Their computers couldn't calculate why two tiny fighters would charge directly at their most heavily defended position. It went against every principle of military strategy. That hesitation was exactly what Dr. Nayuri had been waiting for. From her position aboard the command ship, she watched the enemy formation waver and launched her experimental weapon, a concentrated burst of chaotic human emotional frequencies mixed with every piece of music Sergeant O had collected. The broadcast hit the Void Swarm's hive mind like a sledgehammer, made of pure confusion. Classical symphonies crashed into rock guitar solos, children's lullabies mixed with war drums, love songs overlapped with funeral dirges. It was beautiful, terrible, and completely impossible to understand. The effect was immediate and devastating. Void Swarm ships began moving in random directions, their perfect coordination shattered. Some spun in circles, others simply stopped moving altogether. The collective intelligence that had conquered half the galaxy was overwhelmed by the sheer unpredictability of human emotion. "It's working," shouted Lieutenant Bay from his tactical station. "Their formation is collapsing." But the humans weren't done being unpredictable. All across the battlefield, human crews were making decisions that defied logic. Engineer Ko Ari convinced her captain to ram their damaged cruiser into an enemy dreadnought's weak point. Medic Young Bin led a boarding party to rescue alien prisoners from a Void Swarm vessel, even though it served no tactical purpose. The Federation's alien crews watched in amazement as their human allies fought with a combination of tactical brilliance and pure insanity. Every time the Void Swarm tried to adapt to one strategy, the humans would switch to something completely different. Han Seo and Park Jin had somehow survived their suicidal charge and were now flying through the enemy command cluster, broadcasting K-pop music at maximum volume while dodging destroyer-class weapons with moves they'd invented on the spot. "This is insane," Park laughed over the radio as they corkscrewed around a massive Void Swarm battleship. "We're fighting a galactic war with dance music." "Best battle soundtrack ever," Han replied, executing a barrel roll that physics said shouldn't work in space, but somehow did anyway. Dr. Nayuri watched her readings with growing excitement. The emotional chaos weapon wasn't just disrupting the Void Swarm's coordination, it was actually causing physical damage to their hive mind. The creatures were starting to retreat, their dark ships pulling back in confusion. "Admiral," she called out, "I'm detecting massive disruption in their collective consciousness. The emotional frequencies are overloading their neural networks." Admiral Kree stared at the tactical display in wonder. The most powerful enemy the Nbais galaxy had ever faced was being defeated by human creativity, emotion, and sheer stubborn refusal to follow the rules. "All Federation ships," he broadcast, "support the human vessels. Follow their lead, not your training protocols." Suddenly, alien crews across the fleet began making their own emotional decisions. Commander Veltar ordered his ship to play classical music while charging enemy lines. Science Director Vex abandoned defensive positions to rescue a damaged human fighter. Even the most logical species in the galaxy were learning to trust their feelings over their calculations. The Void Swarm, faced with an enemy that made no sense, began a full retreat. For the first time in their ancient existence, they encountered something they couldn't understand or adapt to. The magnificent chaos of sentient beings fighting for love, hope, and the sheer joy of proving the impossible was possible. As the dark ships fled into hyperspace, the combined fleet erupted in cheers. Humans and aliens celebrated together, having learned that sometimes the best strategy is to throw strategy out the window and fight with your heart instead of your head. The celebration lasted for 3 days. Throughout the Federation fleet, beings from dozens of different worlds shared stories, food, and music in ways that would have been unthinkable just weeks earlier. In the main hangar bay of Admiral Kree's flagship, Engineer Ko-Ari was teaching a group of young Zentari technicians how to fix their equipment using human improvisation. "The manual says this will take 6 hours to repair," one of them said, pointing at a damaged power coupling. "Forget the manual," Ko-Ari grinned, pulling out a collection of spare parts that looked like they came from a junkyard. "What do you think would happen if we tried this?" The Zentari engineers watched in fascination as she jury-rigged a solution using components from 3 different systems. It shouldn't have worked, but within 20 minutes the power coupling was functioning better than before. "How do you know these combinations will work?" asked the youngest engineer. "I don't," Ko-Ari admitted. "But that's the point. Sometimes not knowing is an advantage. It lets you try things that can't work." Across the ship, similar scenes were playing out everywhere. Dr. Na Yuri was collaborating with Federation scientists to study the emotional frequency weapon they'd developed. Sergeant O was teaching alien soldiers how to use music and art as psychological tools. Lieutenant Bay was working with tactical officers to incorporate illogical strategies into their military doctrine, but it was in Admiral Kree's private quarters that the most important conversation was taking place. Captain Cho Min sat across from the Federation's highest-ranking officials, discussing humanity's future in galactic society. "The Federation Council has voted unanimously," Admiral Kree announced formally. "Earth is offered full membership with all rights and privileges. Your species has more than earned its place among the civilized worlds." Captain Cho was quiet for a moment, then surprised everyone by shaking his head. "Thank you, Admiral, but I don't think that's what we want." Science Director Vex's translator made confused sounds. "You're refusing membership, after everything you've accomplished?" "Not refusing," Captain Cho clarified. "Proposing something better. The Federation has spent thousands of years perfecting logical, efficient, predictable methods. That's your strength. But you've also become rigid, unable to adapt when faced with something truly unexpected." Commander Veltar leaned forward, his tentacles curling with interest. "What are you suggesting?" "A partnership," Captain Cho replied. "Not Earth joining the Federation, but Earth and the Federation creating something new together. A system where logical thinking and emotional creativity balance each other out." Admiral Kree's 6 arms gestured thoughtfully. "You want to restructure galactic civilization? I want to make sure this never happens again," Captain Cho said firmly. "The Void Swarm nearly destroyed the galaxy because everyone thought the same way. If we're going to face unknown threats in the future, we need both logical planning and creative chaos working together." The discussion continued for hours, but the outcome was inevitable. The Federation had seen what human unpredictability could accomplish. They wanted that advantage permanently. 6 months later, General Park Hyun stood on the observation deck of humanity's first space station, watching construction crews from 50 different worlds working together to build something unprecedented. The Human Federation Academy was taking shape in orbit around Earth, a massive structure designed to house students and teachers from across the galaxy. "It's beautiful," said Dr. Na Yuri, joining him at the viewing window. She wore the insignia of the Academy's first Director of Creative Sciences, a position that hadn't existed until humans invented it. "More than beautiful," General Park replied. "It's hope." The Academy was designed around a revolutionary concept: mandatory integration. Human students would learn alien logic, mathematics, and scientific methods. Alien students would study human art, emotion, and improvisation. Every class mixed species, every project required both logical and creative thinking. Lieutenant Bay, now promoted to Academy Tactical Instructor, was already running joint exercises where alien precision met human chaos. Engineer Ko-Ari taught impossible engineering, classes where students learned to solve problems by ignoring the rules. Sergeant O ran creative combat courses that used music, art, and psychology as weapons. The first graduating class would include beings from 37 different worlds, all trained in both logical thinking and creative problem-solving. They would become explorers, diplomats, engineers, and soldiers who could face any challenge the universe might throw at them. "Do you think it will work?" Dr. Nayuri asked, watching a group of human and alien cadets working together on a project that involved building a spacecraft out of cafeteria equipment. General Park smiled as he watched the young beings argue, laugh, and eventually succeed at something that should have been impossible. "Look at them," he said. 6 months ago, most of these species had never met a human. Now they're teaching each other how to think in completely new ways. "The Void Swarm might return someday," Dr. Nayuri pointed out. "Let them," General Park replied confidently. "Next time we'll be ready, not just with better weapons or stronger shields, but with minds that can adapt to anything. The galaxy has learned that sometimes the best defense against the impossible is to become impossible yourself." As Earth's sun set behind the Academy's growing structure, the future of galactic civilization was being built by beings who had learned that logic and chaos, working together, could accomplish miracles. The Void Swarm had taught the galaxy an important lesson. Survival required more than just advanced technology. It required the courage to think differently, to embrace the unexpected, and to trust that sometimes the most human response was also the most powerful one.